In this video, I'm going to show you how to add FAQPage Schema using Craft CMS. FAQPage Schema with SEOmatic and Craft CMS. So what is FAQPage Schema? It is, if you go to schema.org, if you're familiar with structured data and structured markup, maybe microdata or the RDFA stuff of the past, we're kind of talking semantic web stuff. Google has implemented a subset of these schemas, and FAQPage is one that they've pushed pretty hard. So you can read more about it at Google Search Central. They have all the instructions on what they're looking for. And the way this shows up in the search engine results, here's a couple queries. There's free logo maker on the left, and you can see that Namecheap. You see this kind of broken out result that shows this drop down with these frequently asked questions. And then similarly on the right hand side with the current mortgage rates query, you can see Bankrate and NerdWallet have both implemented FAQ schema. And you can see that you can really take up a lot of real estate in that search engine result page. Helpful for the users, it's hopefully helpful to the website. The only downside is that, if the person answers their question without clicking through to your site, there's some people that have concerns about that, but I think it's overall, the visibility is worth it. It's helpful to the user. If you can answer the stuff right then and there, why not? So anyway, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about FAQ schema. So a couple rules for implementing this for Google to make you eligible to show this. They're not always going to show it. They kind of decide how to. I haven't seen this anywhere except for the first page, so you're going to need to be ranking on the first page for this type of thing. But the frequently asked questions need to be visible to the user, so they need to be in your markup and visible to the user. And then also you can add the JSON LD in the code itself. And you can also use microdata, which you actually add straight up in the markup, but Google mentions that they prefer the JSON LD, so that's probably the way to go. So let's take a look at the craft setup I've got here. I'm using the SEOmatic add-on from none other than Mr. Andrew Welch. It's 99 bucks. It's well worth it, especially if you're on any sort of commercial site or Craft Pro site. It does a ton of different things. All the schema stuff has all sorts of methods built in that'll let you generate damn near anything you can see on schema.org. And in particular, it's teed up to do the stuff Google recommends really well. So in addition to all your page titles, meta descriptions, all that stuff, all your open graph images, it does everything. XML sitemaps, the whole nine, so well worth the coin. So here's the setup we've got. I've got an articles section. It's a channel. It's just a default entry type called article. I've got one field. It's just a body field. It's a redactor, rich text sort of thing, your standard setup. And then what I'm using to populate the frequently asked questions, I'm using a matrix field. So it just has one block with a question and answer. The question's plain text, the answer is redactor. Then I've got an SEO tab that you'll see in a second where I just add an SEO. It's called an SEO settings. That's the field type that ships with the SEOmatic plugin. So let's have a look at that setup. Here we are in Craft. Let's take a quick peek at the setup I just mentioned. So sections, I've just got an article section with one entry type called article. I just have the default title and the body field, which is a redactor field. I've created a new tab called FAQ on where I've implemented this for some sites. Sometimes you can end up with, a dozen questions or so. I've never seen them put that many. Usually they'll put 3 or 4. And then sometimes I've seen it where they'll add a little link there that'll let you view more, but they can mix and match which ones they decide to include. So I like to put this in a different tab, so it's not just underneath, your kind of main content tab or whatever. So anyway, your mileage may vary there, but here is this facts is a matrix field. Take a look at it a sec. This SEO is the SEOmatic field. So that's how I have the channel set up. Field, see, I've got these split into different field groups. I've got an article field group. The reason I have the FAQ and SEO split up is that these are probably, you're going to reuse these throughout the site, so I like to keep them out on their own. But let's take a look. This one's probably the one we want to take a quick peek at. It's a matrix field. Question field is plain text. Answer is redactor. So I've created a few entries here, basketball related. So this best shooters in NBA history. So I've got some bogus text here, and then I've got some frequently asked questions that I've filled out. It's just kind of this Q&A format. I've got the SEOmatic field, so pretty straightforward. On the front end, here's what it looks like. Just got a kind of plain Jane template, the built-in title. We've got a body field, and then here's that matrix field being pulled in. Now, if you look at the source, here's the stuff coming in from SEOmatic. So we've got a few kind of top level fields that get fed in by the plugin kind of at a global level. Then we've got some page specific stuff. The breadcrumbs, you can override all of this in the template. He's got methods for every single thing you can possibly imagine and then some. And then down here you'll see I've created adding on to this main kind of graph object here, this graph array with the fact page and then the QA. And you'll see some escaping in here. That's no big deal. That's just when we're converting into JSON. So let me show you what the template for this looks like. All right, taking a look at the templates, I have the article template here. Got the entry title, entry body, and then the frequently asked questions. Just loop through my matrix field here, and then down here is the JSON LD. So what I'm doing is I create an array, and then you do the weird twig thing where you merge into the same array to kind of populate it, and then I'm just adding this object on the fly, you know, the question for the name and then the accepted answer. This is just the syntax for the fact schema. You can look this up. One thing to be aware of when you're using redactor is that you'll get a redactor object if you just hit it directly. You need to get the parsed content. That threw me a couple times, and then down here, SEOmatic, the JSON LD, you use this create method and then pass in what you just built up here, this big array, and then it's smart and knows how to spit out the right thing and how to combine it with the other stuff you've got. Now, SEOmatic has a couple different ways you can use it. The easiest way and the most turnkey way is in your layout. You simply leave your title and stuff blank and it will be injected. So I screwed that up, but it doesn't really matter. I can actually even delete this, and I'll usually leave like a little comment in here like SEOmatic, just so you know when you're looking at the rendered result where the hell it came from. So I usually end up with something like this, and then when you look back at the source, you'll see it's got this little under construction emoji because I'm working locally here, and then it injects all of this stuff just before the opening of the body tag. So if you want to test that this works, since I'm working locally, I just copy and pasted the markup, and Google has a rich results testing tool. You can paste your markup in there. If you're working on a live web server, you can just enter the URL, and then it will crawl and let you know which structured data it can find. And in this case, it found the frequently asked questions, and it didn't come up with any errors. So hopefully this helps. Once again, that was just using SEOmatic to populate fact page for Google search results. So there you have it. That's how you add the frequently asked questions markup to your pages in Craft using the SEOmatic plugin, and hopefully you can get your pages to stand out in the Google search engine results. Cheers.